You ever have one of those moments where you think you're the one in control, only to realize you're sitting on a powder keg that's about to blow up your whole worldview? Yeah, that was me, Richard Coleman, on a red-eye to Beijing, first-class seat 2, scotch in hand, about to chew out a flight attendant for not recognizing the importance of who I was. And if you think this is one of those stories where the CEO gets exactly what he wants, well, buckle up. I promise you it's not. Let me set the scene. Midnight somewhere over the Pacific. First-class cabin is quieter than a church on Monday, and I'm thinking about nothing but closing the biggest acquisition of my career. I'm not proud of this, but I was feeling a little testy, and maybe I let my annoyance slip in French to my assistant, figuring nobody in the cabin would get it. Except, Amore flight attendant, she answers me back in perfect French. And let me tell you, I'm not a guy who's easily rattled, but that sent me straight into a tailspin. She didn't just understand, she let me know, without so much as raising her voice, that she wasn't the one intimidated. You know what I mean? That's the moment where everything shifts. Because here I was, the guy who's been running Coleman Industries since I was barely out of my 20s, sitting in the top floor corner office, closing deals, running numbers, missing birthdays, anniversaries, and me daughter's last piano recital before she leave for Juilliard. I'd spent my whole life believing power came from being the smartest, the richest, the most prepared guy in the room. But this young woman, in her navy blue uniform, unmoved by my resume, just made the whole cabin see me for exactly what I was, someone who wasn't used to being told no. The truth is, I almost missed her. She was a background character in my script until she started switching between French, German, Mandarin, Spanish, Italian, Arabic, Portuguese, and something called Igbo, like she was changing radio stations. I mean, you ever meet someone who makes you question the boxes you put people in? That was her. Turns out, Amara wasn't just a flight attendant. She was a Georgetown grad, former UN intern, almost State Department diplomat, and budget cuts had derailed her life plan 2 weeks before it was supposed to start. And the more I learned, the more I realized my whole career had been about identifying potential, deploying talent, maximizing resources, right? But here was this brilliant, multilingual, composed woman pouring me scotch at 37,000 feet because the system I'd benefited from, contributed to, even manipulated it failed her. Failed a lot of people, honestly. I started to wonder if I was part of the problem, if all my success was built on the sand of other people's missed chances. Let me back up a sec. Earlier that week, I'd blown off my wife's calls about our daughter Sophia's recital, promising the usual flowers, the usual expensive gifts, the usual regret. I'll make it up to her, I said. I always said that. Didn't even know what the note said on the cards Vanessa sent for me. It was just easier to focus on the next deal, the next conquest, because I don't know, winning was simpler than feeling. So, when I started talking to Amara, at first it was just curiosity. How many languages do you speak? How do you end up here? But the more she told, Meher, family, moving from Lagos, scraping together a life in Chicago, working through college, internships, rejections, all of IT, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Shame, maybe, or just the discomfort of seeing myself reflected in a story that didn't end with a win. Maybe both. The turbulence hit literally and metaphorically. I started thinking about the global deals I'd made, the jobs I'd cut, the factories we'd moved offshore to save a buck, all in the name of shareholder value. Had my company's lobbying, my donations, my relentless drive for profit contributed to the budget cuts that destroyed Amara's dream? Hard to say for sure. Easy to ignore if I wanted to, but suddenly I couldn't. You want a twist? Here it is. The old me would have let it go, would have rationalized it away. But I couldn't shake it. I watched her handle a medical emergency in the aisle, smooth out a fight between two execs in business class, always calm, always in command, more grace and authority in her little finger than I'd seen in most C-suites. So I did something I'd never done before. I made her an offer. A real one. Join Coleman Industries, run our new international division, triple your salary, name your team. I laid it all out, thinking, who wouldn't jump at this? She didn't. She said she needed to know more about our ethics, our values. And man, that stung because she was right to ask. I didn't have a good answer. I never really thought about values beyond make the company stronger, make the numbers bigger, The negotiations in Beijing bombed. I couldn't close the deal, couldn't outmaneuver the Chinese regulators. So I changed my flight, tracked down Amara on her return leg to Chicago. Yeah, it was a little stalkerish, but business is business, right? Except by then, it wasn't just business. She'd researched us, knew about our environmental violations, the labor issues in Malaysia, the aggressive tax avoidance. She wanted real authority to fix things, not just a fancy title. And here's where it got real. She demanded we start with an independent audit of the Malaysian plant commit, in writing, to fixing whatever they found. I did it. Against every instinct, against the advice of my lawyers, I signed the order. It was expensive, risky, made a lot of people nervous. But it felt right. Amara accepted the job, but only after I agreed to expand the audits company-wide. That's how we kicked off a full-scale reform. Real audits, real reforms, real transparency. Some of my execs thought I'd lost it. The board grumbled, the stock dipped, but then something wild happened. Productivity went up, turnover went down, brand value soared. Turns out, when you treat people like people, not widgets, they perform better. Who knew? She built a team, took on entrenched interests, convinced skeptics, and most importantly showed me that ethics isn't just a PR line, it's a business strategy that pays off. I backed her at every turn, and slowly, our whole culture started to shift. We announced the results at a massive all-hands broadcast worldwide. Amar at my side, both of us standing there as the stock price ticked up, and, yeah, more importantly, as the workers in Malaysia, Nigeria, Indonesia, Vietnam started emailing to thank us for safer jobs and fair pay. Media went nuts, competitors scrambled to catch up, and for the first time, I felt like I was actually building something that mattered not just for the bottom line, but for the world. Now, here's where the story could end, all neat and tidy. But that's not how life works, is it? A year in, Amara gets another offer, this time from the UN, global corporate accountability, the kind of position she'd dreamed of before fate rerouted her life. And I'm sitting there, realizing if she leaves, the whole thing could unravel. I tell her I'll support whatever she chooses, but privately, I'm sweating. She ends up staying at least for now, but only if we expand our standards to all our suppliers, not just internal operations. It's massive, disruptive, and absolutely the right thing to do. 3 years later, we're at the United Nations, signing the Coleman Compact, a code of conduct that over 100 major corporations have now adopted, thanks to her leadership. I raise my glass to Amara at the reception, and for the first time, I understand what legacy really means. Not market share, not press releases, but changing what people think is possible. So let me leave you with this: sometimes the most important deals are the ones you don't see coming. Sometimes you're the guy in first class, thinking you know it all, and the person who changes your life is the one you almost didn't notice. You get one shot to be on the right side of history. Will you take it? Or keep chasing the same old bottom line? You tell me. Go on. Share your take. Was I right to risk everything, or did I lose my mind? What do you think real corporate responsibility looks like? Action or just words? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear what you believe about second chances, about doing the right thing even when it's hard. This conversation is just getting started.